All right, we're live. All right, welcome to Wonder Without the Fear. Today we have Randall, also known as Bullboy Banker, and today we're going to be sort of looking at what the birth certificate is all about. So maybe you could break down what was the thing that we were none the wiser that there was that manifestation of the birth certificate, and then how can we change that so we're take advantage of the birth certificate itself.
Okay, well, I noticed on your earlier kind of intro show, Chris, you showed your certificate to the people, and
Yeah.
basically, like I'm not going to go into a lot of details on the aspect of what it was, so much as what it can be and what it will
Right.
be and what it is. So, the the birth certificate is an instrument. Okay, it's a primary credit instrument, and Chris showed us that in his little short clip earlier. So that uh, document is signed by a couple of people, probably your mother or your father or whatever, and then by a registrar. So these what I'll call signed, but it's an autograph, okay?
Hmm.
Because it's a work of art, is what it is. Is it? It's some kind of a artistic representation. Every time we autograph something, that's what we're doing, okay? It's just like a painting or anything else. So that autograph is very crucial to the whole process. However, authority, and remember when I'm using these words, there's AU at the beginning of them, each of
Hmm.
them, which is the kind of cool thing
Goal.
where the deception starts. Yeah, you're the gold. So the authority by way of our parents' autograph on this document, they're giving that authority to the government. So we basically give our authority or our authorization away. Okay, so that instrument then goes into a realm of banking. Okay, because that's how credit is manifested. And manifest being the key word again rather than creation, because creation in my mind means that it's good for everyone and everything. Manifestation is a man-made, manipulable situation, right? So there's kind of all kinds of ways we can play with the words. But what I'd like to get into today is the idea that we can still use that. Okay, we don't have to think of it always as there's something wrong or something bad, because it's actually quite a unique instrument. And if we change the name of the instrument and change a few laws and or bring in some law instead of this legal stuff, we can bring in some law that says that is a sovereignty certificate rather than a birth certificate. Okay, and that's where things really start to switch for me, because the system, the fiat system, is run on these certificates as the primary credit instrument at the government level. There are then secondary instruments that are autographed, like licenses and social insurance number, and it's just the list can go on almost forever when you get to that stage. But those instruments all allow the government to access credit. And is it fraud? Well, not really, because they got your consent to do it, you see, unknowingly, of course. And
Hmm.
the layers are what make it difficult for people to comprehend, so they don't, we can't even play in the legal system and try to make it right. So we have to make some changes at the common law level or at the lawful level. And that change that I'm promoting and talking about is the change from birth certificate to sovereignty certificate. And it might sound simple to a lot of people, but it is. you know, it's that simple. Just a quick change there, and then a law enacting it, and we don't have to change the fiat system then. Like, let people have money if they have money. Let people think about gold backed or cryptocurrencies or whatever other manifestations or creations they can come up with. Fine. But the fiat system, the way it stands, is very, very good. It's unlimited. If you get out of the legal and put it into the lawful, limit being a corporate word and legal word, we're still dividing those two entities, the corporate entity from the our corporate jurisdiction, which is legal, to the lawful jurisdiction, which is lawful. And we start to think in terms of authority being in the hands then of the sovereign individual, which is you and me, the author,
Yeah.
the AU, the L in gold, if you want to put it that way. I like to play with that one too, because, what's the difference between God and gold? One letter, L. So what is that? Living? Is it
Yeah.
love? Is it, is it lawful? There's lots of L words that can be put in there to make that gold into you. There's a little
Yeah.
intro for you. I hope that,
Yeah.
I know
No,
it
that
spins
covers.
around a little bit, but
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point is we have to get our mindset to where we have that uh we have that creative thought where it makes sense, um and that it also speaks here too, right? It speaks both to the intellect and to the heart, and when that works together, then we're seeing this bigger picture, and we know who we are, and what we are, and how we're changing that from the manifest into the creation, right? Is that basically, yeah?
yeah,
So
that's a good way of looking at it, Chris. And we all have our own, way of putting it, like it, and that's what this is all about, is trying to find, you know, I get it in my mind. And
mhm,
if I can explain that to someone who understands rather than understands or overstands, I like the word overstand, but understand is even better, because that brings it within you. You're understanding the concept and the simplicity of it, because this is really very simple, and it is actually very beautiful. Because I just want to go into that for a little bit, and the idea that when we find out that there is, you know, fraud, I'll call it, because it is deception, and bringing in the illusion of debt, which is just an illusion. There is no debt. It's just simply credit, and blocked credit and diverted credit and stuff like that. But we get when we get to that stage of awareness. I don't like to use the word awake. We're all awake. I mean, but if we're aware of that, you know, deception, then we get angry, right? And we want to
yeah,
fight it, and we want to say, "Look at this shithole we live in," and stuff. Well, God, look around. Like, I live in Calgary, and I mean, I've promoted as the most beautiful city I've been in on earth, and I've been in a lot of cities all over Asia and Europe and America, and this city is just phenomenally beautiful. And there's beauty in every city that you see that has the concept of uh, monetary uh, manifesting. Hong Kong, for crying out loud. And if Hong Kong is just a place where this drifted into, okay, this fiat system, and then it drifted into China, and look what happened in China. I mean, my God, the infrastructure there in the last 25 years since they took Hong Kong back under their arm is just phenomenal. Like, you land in the airports there, and it makes Calgary look like a little matchbox toy city. And that infrastructure was built on this credit system. It wasn't built on the old gold system. There's still gold ideas and a lot more of them over there than there is here, but when it comes to China and Hong Kong, that's fiat. That's that's the credit system at work at its
yeah,
finest. And they use some kind of certification of the sovereign, and they take it. Like, it's downright communism over there. Here they have to have a little bit more creativeness when they do it to con us into giving up the authority. But over there it's just like, yep, we're the government, you're ours. It's just that simple. But it's still all credit. So in a nutshell there, I want to defend the fiat system and say, going back to a gold standard, like Neanderthal, in my mind, what the hell do you think we fought over for all of those years was gold. And when they came up with the idea of credit, things started to settle down on this earth. We haven't had a world war since World War II. We've had a lot of conflicts, and I call it economic demolition by these folks that know how to manipulate the fiat system. They'll destroy something so that the people go out and build it again, and it creates economy or manifests economy. But it's not about war. War was fighting over land and fighting over gold and ownership. And if we go back to a gold standard, what the hell are we going to do with that? Like, okay, Jasara or Narsara, these are the ones, and I'm not running them down, don't get me wrong. I'm just adding to the concept of the what do they call it, the Global Economic Security and Reform Act, Jasara. So it's a good piece of work, other than, in my mind, going back to the Neanderthal gold back days. Like, what the hell is that all about? Like, okay, let's have Trump in charge of the gold-backed currency, or somebody. I don't know who they're going to put in charge. Well, isn't that kind of ridiculous? Like, that's worse than, having a whole bunch of people in charge of something. So I don't
Yeah.
like to run things down. I don't like to say it's bad, but I know that there will be a certain amount of commodity-backed money still in place. We're not here to destroy anything. So people will still be able to choose. They'll still be able to go into the banks and get a loan. If they believe the banks are real and they want to pay them interest and all that garbage, well, go ahead. But the new money that's coming out in this system that I'm just explaining, by changing over to the sovereign certificate and putting the creditors in that position that they're due, it'll be new money. And leave the old alone, or play with it if you want. It's up to you. We're
Yeah.
just adding to.
Just adding to the credit. And yeah, it's really interesting. I guess it was a few weeks ago. I mean, time goes by. I don't know how long ago it was, but you were able to see, I believe it was the Trump campaign or some sort of ad. And if you pause the video, it showed, I think it was a $20 note, and it showed the note saying national credit or something like that as compared to the Fed Reserve. And and then I remember, I think we were talking at some point, and you were just saying like how, okay, that's good, but then it's just like the people have to tell whoever their leader is. In the case of the states, it's Trump, like, we're the creditor. So could you get into a little bit about what your thoughts are on what was going on with that, from your understanding or your in?
Yeah. Well, like, the people I deal with mainly are beyond these government people.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Like, in the banking industry, they don't really care what the governments do. But we get caught up in that because America is the Hollywood, the media, the old Tavistock Institute that moved out of Britain into America, and it became the mouthpiece, right, for this political agenda and political show that goes on. But if you open up your mind a little bit to the idea that this monetary system is well beyond that, like, because the private money that goes into infrastructure, or housing and high-rise towers and all that stuff, anything that's not public, far exceeds the government credit, right? So the government credit has this aspect of the birth certificate or the sovereign certificate, as I'm going to refer to it from now on, because that's where it's going. And no doubt in my mind that it is. It's going to be our new sovereignty certificate. And those that want to participate and are learned in the system will be able to bring projects forward and do things with it, right? So the idea of standing up and telling your politicians that they're the creditor has kind of moved forward to this stage now, where we're saying, well, if you're not going to do it, we're just going to do it. Like, we'll put laws in place and change the banking system where it is the sovereign certificate or the sovereignty certificate. So those who recognize it as that and who act and think in a sovereign manner will be able to access funding. But again, I mentioned this last time, Chris, like, on a public level, what we're thinking is, governments will no longer exist. It'll just be administrative or administrators, right? And they will administer the monetary process. And of course, build some public infrastructure and things like that. But the big one will be that they release and fund a basic income program for all beings. And it doesn't matter what country you're in. Once everybody's on board with this, every human being will receive their basic income, because it's a right. There's no other animal on earth that borrows from somebody to eat and to sleep and those basic needs, and we're just animals. We're biological, logical animals on top of the left brain, dream up a project or a system like what we're talking about. Those are all, human manifestations that, if they're good for everyone and everything, become creation, right? So yeah, it's moved kind of to that stage. And I mean, those that will still need to remind the politicians, don't get me wrong, that we're sovereign and that is a sovereignty certificate. Just say that to them from now on. Like, what do you mean birth certificate? You mean my sovereignty certificate, the one where I am actually the living human being, not a debt entity or a dead entity? That's me. Okay, here I am. Here's my eyes. That's why I like to go on YouTube, because you can see me. Unlike you, Chris, like, we're here, we're alive, not a piece of paper. And then, so keep that tone going as far as identifying yourself as a living man or living woman or living lord or living lady, whatever term language you want to use. It doesn't matter. It's all fun and games there, but you're alive, and you're, and so am I. And we are here to fix this little glitch in the system that made us into something that we're not. We're sovereign human beings, and we are creditors, creators of the fiat money.
Yeah, I think that's like a really important, like, I have to say that, almost daily, because it's an affirmation to make it, real every day. And I know you do that every day, because, well, I hear, if I happen to watch your YouTube, you're saying that every day. So, what are, if you can go over some of the groups that you have been working with, currently working with, so people are able to see and are able to wrap their head around some of these ideas, because, okay, we can talk about it, but some people have to see it in person, because I know you've shown some of the documents that you've created, and you've sort of posted some of these documentations when you're talking about trusts, loyal titles and stuff like that. Because yeah, I'm sure that I know that there's a couple of new people that are watching, and they're kind of curious of what does that even mean, that this is new information.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll start with a name that you know tends to challenge the average human mind that's been, you know, becoming aware of the challenges that we see on this earth. Like a lot of people just are going about their business and, trying to make money and do their thing and don't pay any attention at all. But your people that are following your show, Chris, and the people that watch my YouTube are at a stage where they've, accepted that there is a challenge that needs to be faced. So when I bring up the word Rothschild, oftentimes it like, holy shit, who is this guy? Like he's on the dark side or something. Well, no, I went into that dark. The man that trained me is Bauer. Okay, um, his name is Grantham Taylor Hughes, but his title is Bauer von Brauchwith, which I think something along those lines. Anyway, Lord, and goes back to some uh, kings and queens stuff, I guess you want to call it that. But they were the intelligent ones that created this system a long, long time ago. Like there was some gold to back it to start with, and then they got into saying, well, we don't have enough gold to lend to all these people money created or manifested. So what do? Well, fractional reserve. Like if we just keep a little bit in the vault, nobody will ever know. So we'll just make it out of paper. So that was kind of the beginning of fiat, way, way back, like in the 1500s, I think, or 500s, whichever timeline you want to think in. I mean, it's about 400 or 500 years ago. And at that time, these highly intelligent people also manifested these trusts, and they're called the common law, or it's called the common law pure trust. And this man that I talk about, Grantham, is the revisionist for the common law pure trust, 400-year-old document. And I studied under him directly. Like I didn't read a lot of stuff. We just talked on the phone for hours and hours on end for close to a year. And I
Mhm.
listened, and that's how I learned. And it took a long time. And I could see the common sense in his theories and the intelligence behind the system. And he knew as well as I did that you know there was a little bit of deception and whatnot, but people needed something to follow. So they kind of made some excuses for that. And does he have as much compassion as you or I, Chris? I'm going to say no. And that's something that I think he felt coming from me once we got to be close friends. But so that's one of the people that I'm going to that I and that group in the UK also, and at different times, studied under Grantham Taylor Hughes and put his thoughts forward into organization. We have a registrar there for common law pure trust that's actually only last week become public. Like we've all decided or chosen to expose you know, our trusts and our titles. So, are we moving into that elitist circle or something like that? No, we're just showing everybody else how to do it, and by my coming on videos or talking to you, yes, it's kind of weird language, and I try my best to bring it into um, the circles that I know I was in and I'm in still. So my language needs to be adjusted more. I realize that, and I try to continually adjust it to simplify it, like the idea that just bring forward into your mind, as you said, that is my sovereignty certificate from now on. Just think of it that way. And you've already crossed that line into sovereignty. I know that, Chris, where you think of yourself as a sovereign human in all jurisdictions, whether it be the legal, which is an illusion, and
Yeah.
you know well, and I'm sovereign there, no problem, but then getting into the lawful jurisdiction or the spiritual jurisdiction or even the metaphysical. I've added a fourth in the last little while, talking to some really good friends about numbers. And I've always loved I'm going to spin this off a little bit again here now, have some fun, but I've always loved the idea of ascension. And, the 369 or 3, basis, which is repetitive, seemed to always challenge my mind a little bit when it came to ascension. So adding a fourth dimension or fourth word into your language and stuff like that, it's kind of cool. So just a suggestion to try, Chris. And I'm just playing now a little bit, but so their idea, the last time we talked, I kind of talked about 3 jurisdictions: the legal jurisdiction, the lawful jurisdiction, and the spiritual jurisdiction. But metaphysical is important too, because that's where our dreams, whether they be logical dreams or our dream state, happen, right? In that, and we can bring forward some pretty metaphysical ideas like spaceships or whatever we want, but you got to exercise that creative capability and go outside your box, and have some fun with it. So that's what I've done with my mind, and I've played in that creative area with words and language, and also gotten to the stage of a lot of repetitious mantra work, like you just mentioned, where you keep saying the same thing, and eventually it becomes your reality. Like my little abundance, sovereignty, and health, out of the ASH, ASH, abundance, sovereignty, and health. I say that every day. I don't know how many hundreds of times, and for all, of course, like, because we can get caught up in thinking for ourselves, and that just leads to what most people do, is just, I'm going to buy a house, and I'm going to retire, and I'm going to this, and I'm going to that. But it takes people like yourself, Chris, to pass that message on to others, that we have to look after all. Like, they're not going to do it for us. If there is another them, these people that manifested this system in the first place, we're going to have to step in. And if we step in, like I have in the private, I work inside the banks, and I've only been at it 2.5 years, but people will say to me, well, you don't have anything to show for it. Well, you might be surprised very soon, but I'm not going to advertise it either. Like, when I go buy a new truck, I'll just go buy a new truck, like, it's just going to be that way. But it's, to me, where I kept the all in that jurisdiction or that area of my life, was by thinking in terms of a nonprofit organization and a common law pure trust, which removes the idea of ownership. You basically are a managing director of the trust. And, taking away that idea of ownership and holdings and gold and property and stuff like that is difficult, but it's that step that groups like ours, Chris, are moving into. And I know we're all thinking that way. Like, we've got a wonderful group here in Calgary that meets every Saturday, the crew, and we talk about all, and we talk about non-blaming and non-fighting and stuff like that. It's just a beautiful way to think. So yeah, I'll stop blathering again. Fire something else at me, or you go ahead and talk for a few minutes. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, it is all good, and I think these concepts, especially if you, I mean, for lack of better term, you're researching, people they call it all kinds of names, free man on the land, and sovereign soul, and and I could go on and on and on, and the living man, and so on and so forth. But I think those are good to look at, and don't get me wrong, I looked into all those things years ago and kind of stepped away from it for a while, because it seemed overwhelming and complicated. But when you sit there and you simplify it, and uh, you know, remind yourself of of you know the simple thing of, okay, the birth certificate is, was a bond. Well, no, it's your sovereign certificate. And that's where the power, in my mind anyway, comes from, is that that inner standing, or that overstanding of these simple concepts. And as humans, we like to make it complex and complicated, and sometimes it can be, but it doesn't have to be, because if these words are actually quite simple. And that's why in the last one we used like a little bit of we used a little bit of humor, where we were talking about uh you know the ship that comes in. It's always a female, and it bursts at the dock, and all these, and I could go on and on and on, but you could watch that, other people talk about that. But these things, they're, when you look at it though in those simple terms, then it loses that complication. And you don't have to uh, create these complicated documents or whatever. And it's really simple and easy. It's the biggest thing, I think, is that mindset change, and just keep on changing that mindset over and over again, because that is what's actually uh, you know intercreating that timeline, or that uh, limit. Oh, we lost you. I'm talking to myself. All right, I'm gonna try to come back. 1 sec. And all right, sorry folks, we're gonna try this again.